now listening to the Arsenal Therapy Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the 15-minute show. I'm Adam Keys, your host as always, and today we're going to be talking about Manchester City's 115 charges, but more so, why there has been a sudden surge in reporting around these charges. These charges were brought some time ago. We've known about them for a long time, but in the last 24 hours, we've seen a huge rise in the reports. We've seen Jamie Carragher, Richard Keys, we've seen The Athletic run numerous reports. And the question is, why now? Yes, we're getting to the last day of the season, but so much has been done to kind of not mention this throughout the season that it seems strange that suddenly there's such a surge in reports. So we're going to have a bit of a chat about this. Firstly, I would like to say the charges against City, the club that were most robbed of glory as a result of these were Liverpool. Arsenal are coming in, they're competing with City at a point where the eyes of the world are on City. The charges are out there. When Liverpool were competing with City, everyone was lavish in praise upon City. They were praising every aspect of the game. Liverpool built this incredible project. They had everything meticulous. Their recruitment was absolutely spot on. Yes, they had the odd one that didn't work out, but so many of their transfers were bang on the money. They had a project that made many of us believe, myself included. I was someone that looked at Liverpool, really studied what they did. I was obsessed with what they were doing during that time. We weren't a good side. And what Liverpool were doing made me believe that with the right people in charge at Arsenal, we could really become a club again that competes at the highest level. Liverpool did that whilst probably competing with City at their freest spending. But also, look, Pep came into a club that had already spent huge sums of money before he came in. They had won 2 titles. They had gone from a mid-table club to a club that were competing right at the top and were able to attract Pep Guardiola. When Pep arrived at City, they had Vincent Kompany, they had an aging Yaya Toure, they had Fernandinho, Raheem Sterling, Sergio Aguero, David Silva, all these top players already in place. And of course, they had their crown jewel, Kevin De Bruyne. Within his first 2 windows, Pep Guardiola came into Man City and spent 500 million euros. He bought multiple fullbacks at huge rates. And with that, Man City were able to set the market rate for transfers. They spent huge very early on. They created a side that were able to blow everyone else away. And look, at the time, Arsenal were nowhere near competing with City. We weren't good enough. We didn't have the structure in place. We wouldn't have got there. It wouldn't have mattered who was at the top of the pyramid at that time. We wouldn't have got anywhere close. So by the time it hits 2020, when Arteta comes in and we finally start getting our act together, City already had this phenomenal team, and Liverpool were competing with them right at that point. That was City at their absolute pomp, Centurions. And since the Centurions season, City have gone on and spent close to £1 billion. That's insane. In the time that Arteta has been in charge, City have spent over since 2019 actually. So just before Arteta came in, when City finished on 98 points, they've spent £758 million. Arsenal have spent 700 in that time. So yes, we've still spent. There's no denying that. But what the thing with City is, it's been the consistency of spending. But most importantly, it's been doing it behind a curtain with refusal to cooperate and deal with the parties that every other club has to deal with. We've already seen Everton and Nottingham Forest charged this season, deducted points, huge ramifications for simply overspending. Man City have 115 charges. That is the reason why this hasn't been brought quicker. Everton and Forest had 1 charge each. It was very easy to deal with. Man City have been trying to trip the Premier League up at every way. They have been to court for years over this. They've refused to provide the information. And this is why the Premier League have brought 115 charges as opposed to bringing 1. Let's have a look at some of the things we've seen over the last 24 hours, because this is very strange. And I think the first one, this kind of kickstarted a lot of these reports. It was a report from The Athletic. And The Athletic are the gold standard of reporting right now. They're so accurate with everything they do. And their report is that Richard Masters will attend Arsenal versus Everton on Sunday because Masters basically wants to avoid a situation of presenting Man City with the title again. He did it last season, so this wouldn't be the first time. City did have the charges last season, but it does suggest that there's maybe something hotting up in the case. 115 charges, and the Premier League's association with the club and kind of glorifying the 4 titles in a row. So that kind of kick-started this. And over the last 24 hours, we've seen Jimmy Carragher saying Man City can become the greatest ever Premier League side, but the 115 charges are inescapable. What's funny about Carragher is, depending on who he's working for at the time, you will see different versions of him. The true version of Jimmy Carragher will fully believe this. With Sky, is Jimmy Carragher being held back in what he's allowed to say? Are Sky being very cautious of leaning towards this, talking about the 115 charges? But this article for the Telegraph from Jimmy Carragher goes very much into detail about why Man City's charges are inescapable, and it is something that has to be discussed. And this is true. This isn't a side that, on a football level, that you can knock at all. Man City are the absolute top at the best. They are everything that you look at and think they've got every tool to compete in every scenario. They've got the best players. And I think part of why people are reluctant to really pull down City as well is they have created this kind of super clean image on the pitch. Their players, for me, you don't have many unlikable characters in that team. You've got a team filled with technicians who play beautiful, control and suffocating football. They score lots of goals. They play the ball on the deck. They do everything on the pitch in the right way. And they've got entertainers like De Bruyne, Foden, Bernardo Silva, Rodri, some of the best players we've ever seen in the league. And with that, rivals are scared to talk about them in a way that, to hold themselves against City and be measured against them, because it's almost like if City win, it doesn't matter. We don't have to judge ourselves because City are so much better, and then say, oh, well, City have the 115 charges. But at the same time, those 115 charges are why City have been able to get here. And look, I'm not taking anything away from Pep Guardiola here. What he's done on the pitch, what he's implemented into the Premier League has been sensational. And that has impacted Jurgen Klopp. It's made Liverpool a better team. But ultimately, Liverpool were robbed of so much off the back of this. I don't personally think Arsenal are being robbed right now, because I think we are competing with the eyes of the world. I think we're not competing against the strongest version of Man City either. I think it's actually making us better. Whereas Liverpool, I think we're robbed of something very significant. But also with City spending, it really forced the market prices up, because City were the first to go big in the fullback area, pushed the prices up there, going big in centre half. All these areas where they were able to spend without any ramifications, that was allowing them to set the market rate. And then it allowed them to sell very well. And by selling well, they were able to have a healthy net spend because they had assets to sell. But Paul Merson's also weighed in on this. And again, it's saying that the Premier League has to deal with these charges before we can make any claims about how good Man City truly are. Because without these charges being really cleared up, we don't know. Because, yeah, on a pure playing level, Man City are the best football team that we have seen. Their dominance is undeniable. Everything that they do on the pitch, tactically, Pep, as I've said, has just moved the tactical level of football in England on light years in the 9 years he's been in the Premier League. But it does come back to this. If you're able to hide the stuff you're doing and build a super winning machine, it becomes very difficult to give you the respect that you perhaps deserve on a footballing level, because of everything that's being hidden behind the scenes. And then again, Richard Keys, this is one of those, the worst person that just made a great point. And Richard Keys has actually weighed in on this a couple of times on BN Sports. We've seen clips of him talking about Man City, him saying about the title should come with an asterisk until the 115 charges are fully resolved. And the thing is, we know Man City have actually been told that the information that they've refused to hand over, they have to hand it over. It's within UEFA rules. It's within the Premier League rules. And it's also important to remember, whilst we talk about these 115 charges as a Premier League matter, Man City were banned for 2 years from European football and heavily fined for breaking FFP rules. And again, part of that was down to a failure to provide information. It was also ultimately overturned in the Court of Arbitration for Sport. But at the same time, they were given a very, very harsh punishment that people forget about. And in the end, they were fined something like £26 million. It was a lot of money, but to Man City, it was a drop in the ocean. During that time, they were able to go on and build a team that won the Champions League. So the ramifications of these charges are huge. And I don't believe Man City will get the extreme end of the punishment, which is expulsion from the Premier League. But at the same time, with so many other clubs being hit with points deductions for slightly overspending, whilst also being cooperative with the league, the fact that City have done all these things, covered these things up, and not cooperated with the league is absolutely massive. And one of the things that I do wonder if this was the kind of catalyst for all this was Jurgen Klopp did an interview with Redmen TV, great channel, Liverpool channel. I did the Sportsman podcast with these guys, and we talked about Jurgen Klopp on it. But Jurgen Klopp said, I've already said numerous times, Pep for me is the best manager in the world. Whenever but at the same time, it's not easy to talk about because they've got these charges against them. All the financial side that held Liverpool back. City have benefited from all of this. And Pep has fired quite a few shots at City in his exit. He's been very clear that he doesn't like it. He's talked about the lack of energy as being one of the reasons that he's given up. And it is very difficult to look at City, fully give them the credit that they deserve on a pure footballing level, because let's face it, the likes of Phil Foden has absolutely nothing to do with this, and he's had a sensational season. But what he has done is being tarnished by the off-the-field things. And everything, I watch City a lot. I study what they do. I'm obsessed with the details in their game. I think they're fantastic. And that is on a pure footballing level. But when you look at the off-the-field things, they have been able to build this super team because they have been doing things behind a curtain. The Athletic are another to weigh in on again, second time that they've put an article out in 24 hours. And it's again just saying, it's basically what I'm saying now. It's possible to admire and praise a team, the genius that's a coach and the talent that and what's matched by their applications, whilst also questioning the institution. And that's exactly what we're seeing. Man City's charges, they're a huge part, and they've had implications on every team from top to bottom in the Premier League. The amount of money that's being spent, basically every fixture against City, the points that they've lost to them. I'm not saying that anything that those teams would have beaten City, they would have got more points, but everything City have done with FFP and refusing to basically comply has set a precedent for other clubs of why should we do it whenever City are getting away with it and going out and winning trophy after trophy as a result. But what are the 115 charges? Because this is something, it was discussed briefly whenever they came out, but 54 of the charges are for a failure to provide accurate financial information from 2009 going into 2018. So that is in Pep's tenure. 2018 was the season City finished as Centurions. 54 times they have refused to provide that financial information. And again, 14 times is a failure to provide accurate details for player and management payments from 2009 through to 2018. Again, those payments, we talk about your ability to attract and retain talent. You have to be clear. You have to be transparent with those payments. That is part of the rules. And if you can go and pay big backhanders to agents, you can go and pay managers bonuses through shell companies and so on. This has huge ramifications on other clubs because it means you can attract the best and it stops other clubs from being able to buy these players. And again, 5 times failure to comply with UEFA's rules regarding FFP from 2013 to 2018. And then again, you've got breaching Premier League's PSR rules 2015 to 18. 35 times a failure to cooperate with Premier League investigations from 2018 to 2023. And if you look at the theme here, it is a continuous failure to cooperate. They're hiding stuff. That is ultimately what it's come from. Man City are refusing to give the information that every other club is obliged to give. And the big one is, if they are able to hide what they're doing, they're able to cover up what they're doing, they can attract the best talent, they can pay whatever they want, and they're not being held accountable. So that is ultimately how you build a super team. And teams like Newcastle right now are being held back because they don't have assets to sell. So when a lot of these rules came in, Man City were already starting to grow as a super club. But Newcastle, for example, have been bled dry by Mike Ashley. They don't have any assets to sell. So they're always going to have a really high net spend until they start having assets to sell. What Man City did was inflated the market, bought players, then clubs had to pay more the following year to get the players of that level, and then Man City were able to sell on, giving them a very healthy net spend. Newcastle, for example, can't do that. And numerous other clubs across the league get caught in a position where they're having to be transparent in a way that Man City have got away with for a long, long time. But again, we've seen the Liverpool the Liverpool Echo report on it. This off the back of Jurgen Klopp's interview. We've seen the Birmingham, whatever the paper is in Birmingham, saying Aston Villa could get a 13.5 million windfall if Man City are found guilty of this. The Manchester Evening News said that there's Man City fear a £350 million compensation bill over the guilty charges, as Man United are set to benefit. So what this actually means is Man City could have to pay over 350 million in compensation to other clubs and pay back the prize money that they have already won from the Premier League and UEFA if they're found guilty of these charges. Again, none of this has been reported over the last year. The charges came out, loads of noise, then quiet. But the main football personalities have very much stayed away from it. Ian Wright's mentioned it a couple of times, but anytime someone does, it gets swept under the carpet and we move on and we focus on the football side. But every club could get compensation as a result of this. That's how big this is. And we're not talking about a club that's slightly overspent. That would be fine. If Man City had broken the rules, overspent, honestly, I don't care that much. I really don't. Pay a fine, get on with it. But it's the fact that every club is being held to the standard of transparency, and Man City are getting away with it year after year after year with not giving the correct information. And I keep saying, Arsenal weren't in a position to compete with City during this time. Nowhere near it. We're now building a club to compete with them. So none of this is going to have any effect on this year's title race. That is something that we also have to reiterate. This year's title race, if West Ham happen to get something, so be it. But the chances are it's City's title. That's the reality of it. And the hearing is set for autumn this year. And we're told it's unlikely we will get a decision before the summer of 2025. So we're going to have the whole of next season with this hanging over City as well. But what does the Independent Commission actually have the power to do? So we're told basically they have the power to do almost anything. But they can suspend Man City from playing league matches, which I would imagine if they're suspended, the points go to the opposition. I don't know the ins and outs of that. They can be deducted points. They can have some matches replayed. That's something we really don't want to see. Clubs don't have capacity to start replaying matches. And also replaying matches that happened in the past, that's just not something anyone wants to see. It changes the outcome completely, and it's just a load of bollocks. That we can see Man City expelled from the Premier League. Again, that's the most extreme case, and I don't think that's going to happen. I really, really don't. That's just what my gut's telling me. They can order compensation to be paid. This is what I would imagine is going to happen. If Man City are found guilty, I would see a points deduction and compensation. However, a lot of clubs will take Man City to court and they will sue them over this. They can also be refused registration of players. In other words, a transfer ban. We've seen Chelsea get that because of their refusal to comply with academy rules. A transfer ban isn't out of the question. That is something that could be done. That would probably have the least effect on City, given how good they already are. Or deducted points, again, depending on the points total, Man City could end up, given how good they are, you could get a 30 points deduction and they still end up qualifying for the Champions League. But at least it is a recognition of what they've done wrong. Conditional punishment, again, that's fairly open-ended. Club has to pay costs. That comes down to the compensation that the Evening News in Manchester have reported, and then anything else that they see fit. But ultimately, there is a huge kind of open-endedness about this. There's nothing here to say that Man City will definitely get this. They'll definitely get that. This is something that we're seeing reported for the first time en masse by loads of people at once. We've never had this before. Up until this point, we've had the odd murmur. It's mainly been fans on social media. Man City fans will say, all we've heard about is the 115 charges. You've heard it from fans. You've heard it from the odd kind of big channel that's grown a big following. But the mainstream media have been very careful to stay away from reporting on this. Suddenly, we've got Carragher, Richard Keats, Paul Merson, The Athletic, all reporting on it, and Jurgen Klopp coming out and speaking on it, all within 24 hours. That, to me, would suggest that there's possibly been some kind of injunction that City have had in place, a reporting embargo, some kind of restrictions that have stopped the media talking about it, that have finally been lifted. They've maybe lost something in court. I don't know. I'm purely speculating here, but these are part of the things that we do see happening, and suddenly that's why we see a rush in reporting. But look, give us your thoughts. Tell us what you think. This is something I would reiterate. We've got a great comment here. None of the success comes without the foundations, and if the foundations built on cheating, ... Absolutely, that's very true. If the foundation of the club is built on false financial reporting and everything else, it becomes very difficult to trust the club. It becomes very difficult to give them the success, because squad building, as much as football's played on the grass, squad building is done behind the scenes. And if you get your squad building wrong, you're never going to achieve success. We've seen this year after year after year. And what Man City are doing is something that I think the big thing for me is the lack of transparency, because every club is being held to that. And if City are getting away with this, it becomes very difficult to justify. How do you sanction Newcastle? Why should Newcastle face any punishment if they break the PSR rules? Why should Chelsea? Why should Arsenal? Why should any other club? And Newcastle so far have been very, very careful to stay within the rules. They could have went out and broken the rules in January. They could have went out and bought someone, but they didn't. So look, give us your thoughts. Tell us what you think. Do you think that, why do you think that all the reporting's coming now? What do you think of City's success? Do you think there is an asterisk beside their title win? Do you think that they deserve their credit as being the best team in the world? But again, the other question that I want to pitch to you is, Arsenal are competing with City at a time when their cycle is maybe starting to come to not so much an end, but their peak is coming to an end. The likes of De Bruyne is getting older, Bernardo may be off. Do you think this could actually benefit Arsenal in a way it's severely damaged Liverpool? Liverpool competed with them at their pump, at their most dangerous, but Pep won't be there much longer. And Arsenal have raised their game to such a high level to compete with Man City. Could it actually be of benefit to us in the way that it damaged so many other clubs? I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this. Drop them in the comments. And if you've liked this video, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We're on here a couple of times a week, and we've got the main pod as well. So really looking forward to hearing your thoughts. Keep this debate going. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize this, and the better the discussion comes around football. So thank you to everyone that's joined the show. Have a great day. And once again, tell us your thoughts and give the video a like. Cheers.